Before we dig around in the facts, findings and definitions related to demystifying sibling sexual abuse, I'm going to address two topics that people frequently bring up when I share my story. They used to upset me deeply, but I've finally learned not to take them personally, although I will admit it took some time and self-work. It's just doctors and nurses. I recall one experience during a local women's fundraising lunch when a participant came up to introduce herself while I was making myself tea, waiting to listen to the keynote speaker. She slipped her business card under the saucer balanced on the palm of my hand and asked, "What's the topic of your memoir?" She'd heard the event coordinator share the news that I was writing my story. I responded, "It's about sibling sexual abuse. It's my story, and I'm writing to speak up." She replied, while giving a little shake of her head and smiling simultaneously, "Oh, your brother was playing doctors and nurses. He was only pretending to be an adult. Boys will be boys. He wouldn't have meant anything by it. You'll see on my card that I'm a healer, if you'd ever like to talk." As soon as she opened her mouth to speak, I could tell that she was going to share an opinion with me. I was intrigued by what she said because I realised that this kind of a response would probably not be isolated in my journey of speaking about my experiences. I paused my tea bag dunking, not exactly shocked by the lack of acknowledgement of the sibling sexual abuse, given it's an awkward topic for many people, but with a feeling that I slipped into a kind of time warp. While neither of us physically shifted our feet or any other part of our bodies, I felt as if my body was tilting, rebounding away from her, the space between us stretching out in a slow motion kind of way. I had heard her clearly say the words, and then my hearing got a little buzzy. So the noise of the room dimmed, and my vision became misty, making me want to take a long blink, or just let my eyes close a little while until she was gone. I could feel my heart beating like a drum in my chest, warming as it did sometimes when emotions arose. In the end, all I did was blink once, and then I came back to where I was in the room. I was okay. It was not about me. I understand and fully appreciate when someone expresses their lack of understanding. However, was I hearing that I must have misinterpreted my brother's abuse? That's just a little wrong. I let out a heavy sigh, gave my tea bag one last dunk, swung it into the little tidy bin on the table and replied, quite clearly, No, I don't think that was the case at all. They weren't games. I didn't have fun. It was sexual abuse." It was her turn to look slightly stunned before an awkward silence enveloped us. We turned simultaneously away from each other, scanning the room to see if there was anyone else to talk to. Then, thankfully, we were being summoned to find our seats, ready for the keynote speaker to begin. I don't really know what inspires people to have these opinions. Perhaps partly it's the desire to avoid awkward or painful topics, leading to a cultural perception that it's all child's play. I had read that the taboo goes as far back as the ancient Greeks, Pascoe A.H. 1995, and there was evidence that sibling sexual abuse had been somewhat romanticised in the past, mainly in romantic literature, Roundtree M. 2007. Also, unfortunately, there is a popular misconception that sexual contact between siblings has been thought to contain innocent elements of age-appropriate sexual exploration, reflecting the belief that this exploration is consensual, benign, and without malice or harm. Welfare A. 2008. That is a belief I've heard many people express publicly, despite it being incorrect, based on a lack of information or experience, and potentially very hurtful to victims and survivors. I know for a fact that I did not misunderstand nor desire to try out my brother's exploration of my mouth with his erect penis, whilst I was forcibly held immobile. That did not have an element of what is called playing doctors and nurses. Whatever the case, I do feel the reference to even age-appropriate sexual exploration as playing doctors and nurses needs changing. It's inappropriate, outdated, and disrespectful of two honourable professions.